What's going on, Big Dog Nation? What's going on, Wolves, Wolfettes, everybody? It's popping tonight. We got the Scotch here. We got the guest of the hour, my guy. I have a ton of respect for what he does, and I'm actually going back. Ray, when me and Ray first started, I was just a random dude on Twitter following him and loving his stuff. And that's kind of where we got started. So it's crazy now that I have this little show that I do, Market Watch Mondays, and Ray's got this big show, big community he's got on Destination Devy. And we're hooking up. We're gonna sip some drinks and we're gonna talk football. We're gonna talk Devy, man. We're gonna talk Devy. And the reason why I want to talk Devy is because I brought Ray on the show, man. What else we're gonna do but talk Devy with the Devy King himself, Ray GQ. Ray, how you doing tonight, man?
Man, this is crazy, man. You were like when it's funny, man, how this thing works out. You were just a dude who was just hitting me up, responding to takes that I had, agreeing with some things, disagreeing with others, challenging, always dope though, like a cool ass dude. And I remember telling you, like, I like you, man. Like you're all right, man. You an all right dude. And to see the growth that you've had and bullshit, man. This is legit. What you're doing, everything that you've built, the name that you've made for yourself, and sort of the stamp you put on over there at Big Dogs Got to Eat with Nick and the guys, man. You're a fast riser your damn self, man. So don't short yourself at all, brother. But this is fun. It's been a long time coming, man. And yeah, I know a little something about Devy, man. But it all works together with dynasty and fantasy football, man. I mean, these are the guys that we're going to be drafting here soon. So it all plays a role, man.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a beautiful thing about Devy and dynasties is it all ties together. And I came late to the Devy game. I came late to the dynasty game too, to be honest. So I'm still learning. I learned the Devy game through Ray himself. The first ever Devy league I joined was actually the Destination Devy Listener League, and I'm getting stomped by Ray in that league. He's giving me the business. He's giving the rest of the league the business too. But it's a good learning experience, man. It's a ton of fun. So if you guys aren't trying Devy, I hope by the end of this episode after listening to Ray, after listening to me, you're gonna be able to enjoy it and at least take that plunge, man. Take that plunge, you won't regret it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ray, I talked a little bit about how we met. I mean, I want to hear a little bit about you. You in the last year, the growth that Destination Devy has seen has been incredible. I followed it from I don't know about day one, but maybe day three. Whenever I hopped on Twitter, and it's just been an exciting thing to see. Tell the folks some of the things you're working on. I know you got the all gas stuff over on Patreon. You got a ton of content. I'm a member. Okay. Just so you guys know, there is no greater stamp of approval I can put on something to pay for the product. And that is one product that I have to pay for, even as a content creator myself. It's live. It's popping in the chat. It's popping in Discord. Ray's giving out fire content all the time. So Ray, tell us a little bit about how that came to be. Because I know you built that from the ground up.
Yeah, man. So right now, what I'm working on is it's 2021 prospect time. It's 2022, 2023, 2024 guys. That's what I do, man. My whole claim to this thing is trying to keep you one step ahead of your league mates. And so in order to do that, while everybody is giving you content of who to start this week and who's going to help you win your title this year, I'm thinking about the cats that are going to help you win titles next year and the years after. And that's the great thing about Devy, man. Like it keeps you. I always say, Dynasty is a game of chess, not checkers. And the more you know about these upcoming prospects, the better you can strategically position your team for short and long term success, right? So, trade deadlines and stuff like that, while everybody's just trying to get the James Robinsons of this year's and the Kirk Cousins to lead you to a playoff. When you're making those trades, man, I want you to be aware of who's coming in 2022. What does the 2023 class look like? So that's the big thing that we got cooking at Destination Devy, man. Right now, we just kicked off the prospect film series. So every week we're breaking down prospects for the 2021 class to get a head start. By the time everybody catches up in February and March, everybody that's a member of the squad is already going to know the top 30 running backs, the top 50 wide receivers, the top couple of tight ends, and you know what I'm saying? Like we're all going to be a step ahead. And shout out to you, man, because you are a member of the squad and you're a content creator yourself. So you're busy. Your time is you have to allocate it accordingly. But definitely appreciate the support that you've shown me the love and all of that, man. So it's all love, baby.
Hell yeah, man. Speaking of love, man, pour that drink. I got my favorite drink tonight. We're not sponsored by them or anything, so this is not like a sponsor plug. But Lagavulin, man. Scotch, have you ever had Lagavulin?
No, I haven't, man. Scotch, I'm more of a McAllen guy, but if you're recommending it, then I guess I'm gonna have to try it out, right?
Dude, you can get it at Costco. And if you get it outside of Costco, it's like 120 bucks a pop. But if you get it at Costco, I think it's like 60 or 70 bucks. Honestly, the best single malt that I've ever had, but I haven't had like the
Okay.
super, super fancy shit. So if you like
Okay.
scotch, man, hit that shit up. Actually, you know what, matter of fact, next time I go to Costco, I'm gonna pick up a bottle. I'm gonna send that your way just for hopping on this
Oh,
pod with me. So we can kind of
man.
grab a couple drinks.
Well,
That's what I'll
I'm
do.
drinking some water right here, but what I have in this cup, I can't drink it, and I'm not gonna open it up on air, but I will partake later on this evening. So appreciate it, Mike.
Love it. Love it. All right. So, y'all know what we do on this channel, right? We talk about strategy because we want to teach you how to think about the game of Dynasty. And today, we want to teach you about how to think about the game of Devy and how to approach it. And so, Ray, I don't know how you approach Devy startups. My first one was with you, obviously, but I think I've done a couple more this year. And for the most part, I try and strike a good balance with more leaning towards NFL products because, as you know, as I know, man, Devy is a degenerate's paradise when it comes to gambling, right? Like these players, I see guys drafting freshman running backs that won't be coming out to 2023. Personally, I don't really stay that path. Like I avoid running backs for the most part until they're proven in their like junior year or maybe sophomore year. I like to attack the wide receivers, like the early producers, the David Bells of the world, the Rondell Moores of the world. But I'm curious to get your thoughts, man. Like, how do you, when you go into a Devy startup, like, what are you thinking about? Is there like a checklist that you go through? How do you think about the positions and like, yeah, how do you attack the draft?
Dude, I'm over here fucking crying, man. I made some dinner tonight and cut some onions up, and I guess I didn't wash my hands good, so my shit is like legit, legit crying. It looks like I'm crying, bro. My shit is burning, but but no, no. So your point about Devy running back. So let's talk about that for a minute. And I agree with you. For me personally, there are very few incoming freshman running backs that I'm going to invest significant draft capital in a startup because it does take a while. And we've seen so many of these collegiate running backs flame out early. But what I will say is what I've noticed is they are some of the best assets to have in Devy, especially early. If you had a player like Bijan Robinson or a player like Tank Bigsby, as soon as they have a blow up game, you could flip those guys for significant haul. And my startup strategy really depends on what, because for those of you listening that aren't familiar, generally what happens is you draft your NFL team first and then you have a Devy draft, right? So it honestly depends, Mike, on what kind of mood I'm in that day. Is this a league that I really want to win right now? Or is this a league where like I feel like punting and I just want to get a bunch of young guys and we'll see how it plays out in a couple of years? And it's kind of fun. And you did that to a certain degree in the listener league, right? You
Yeah.
kind of punted the NFL side, loaded up on a whole bunch of these young college guys, and it looks like for the foreseeable future, you're going to be a problem, right? So it really depends. Like, here's the biggest thing: whatever your strategy is, you kind of have to stick to it. You can't be half-ass in and half-ass, you know what I mean? You can't straddle the fence
Oh
in
yeah.
Devies. You got to either say, the hell with Devies, I'm going all in. I want to win this year. I'm loading up on NFL talent. I'll get Devies later. Or you have to say, like you can try to play both sides, like, oh, I want to win, but I want to get some good Devies. You'll end up screwing yourself because you're going to end up reaching for a player. So you really, it really truly depends on how I'm feeling in that startup. But traditionally, if we're talking about the players that I want to focus on, they are sophomores who have been proven, incoming sophomores that have been proven, or legit juniors that I think are going to get the draft capital for the NFL, because the name of the game is to score fantasy points when they matriculate onto the NFL. So, we'll talk about some other positions later, but for me, I'm looking to load up on wide receivers or stud running backs who are probably eligible to come out in the next year's rookie draft.
Yeah, that's a great point that you brought up. Like, you really can't half-ass stuff, man. Like, I don't care if it's Devy or Dynasty. If you're winning, you got to go all in and win. You can't be one of those guys that are scared to lose a trade. That's not the path to winning. And if you're like punting, make sure you punt all the way because that's how you land like the Trevor Lawrences and the Justin Fields of the next year. And like I've done that. I like to balance my portfolio. Like I'll go like probably like all in on like 2/3 of my portfolio of leagues, and then 1/3 I'll just like kind of punt. And the freedom. I don't know if you experienced this, Ray, but it's like it's some sort maybe because I'm a degenerate gambler and I just love gambling, but like there's some sort of freedom and elation that I feel when I decide to punt because like I no longer care about starting lineups. I no longer care about scoring points. The only thing I care about is playing value. And to your point, which is a great one, and something I haven't done enough of is probably, some of these freshman running backs, getting them and watching them pop off and just getting out right away. So you kind of pop off that gain, you trade them for a proven asset, you lock in that gain, and then you kind of don't worry about for the next couple of years. Because, like you said, it's very few guys that kind of go from freshman, phenom to like junior, like top end draft pick. Like Cam Akers is one that comes to mind. Like Najee Harris will be one that comes to mind, right? But for the most part, a lot of these guys flame out. I mean, you played college ball, right? What do you think it is that makes the running back position so volatile? Like you see like Brees Hall is coming out of nowhere. You see Clyde Edwards-Helaire is coming out of nowhere. Like is there a mental facet there to play in that position that gives them that, or is that just comes with the flavor?
I think that what it is what people don't understand is unlike the NFL, right? We will not, like, we know right now with a shadow of a doubt that the Carolina Panthers are not going to spend a high draft capital on a running back. We know that the New Orleans Saints aren't going to spend high draft capital on a running back. They already have Kamara. The Panthers already have Christian McCaffrey. We know that the Colts aren't going to draft another running back for the next 4 or 5 years, right? But in college, the name of the game is to get as many 5-star recruits as you possibly can. Just because Auburn has Tank Bigsby, which he's very high in my personal Devy rankings, I do think he's one of those freshman to junior phenoms. But if they have an opportunity to get the number one running back in the nation next year, they're going to take it. They're going to continue to bring in high end talent. They don't just say, "Oh, I've got one guy, don't worry about it." So in college, you can look at Ohio State right now. They're bringing in wide receiver after wide receiver after wide receiver, and what ends up happening is the same thing that sort of I'm using Texas as an example. A lot of people were high on Keontae Ingram at 6'2", 220 pounds. He's got a 3-down skill set. He's got the prototypical size, but in college, they're going to bring in the top 2 running back in the country. And a lot of times those dudes are better than some of these cats that are already there. It's rare to see, and here's the thing, Mike. People forget because Najee's been so dominant over the past 2 seasons. There was a lot of hype about Trey Sanders potentially stealing that role from Najee prior to 2019 until he got hurt. So I just think it's the cycle of kids that continue to matriculate into college, and sometimes those dudes are just better than the guys that are in front of them. And that's why for me and Debbie, I don't mind moving unless I know that this running back is coming out next year and I'm sitting on a top 10 rookie draft pick on my roster. I have no problem with trading some of those Debbie running backs because I'll find another one next year. Like there's death taxes and running backs coming into college. Like that's a guarantee certainty. So for me, they're one of those assets where I have no problem moving. And if I really like a player, I really believe in them, I'll still trade them, but it's going to take me a little bit more to move off of that asset.
Man, that's a great point. It's almost like the running back position is more competitive in college than it is in the NFL because it costs them nothing to bring in these 5 stars, right? You want as many good guys as you can. And it's why places like Georgia, people knock DeAndre Swift for not being a workhorse, but that's just not how they run the offense, right? I mean, you clued me into that. Like, you're not looking for a workhorse all the time. Sometimes you get the Jonathan Taylors and sometimes you get the DeAndre Swifts, but you got to be looking for different things. And I find personally, I struggle a lot with running back evaluation for college prospects because the numbers aren't always there, right? You're not going to get like massive compilers with DeAndre Swift, but you just got to watch the game. And, speaking of looking at the game, I know you approach it from a film based perspective, which I respect a hell of a lot because I can't do that well at all. But I know you also approach it from like the number side, right? So give us a little bit look into your process. How do you weigh the different sides of film versus analytics? Do you even waste your time making that argument? I don't. I kind of just stay away from that for the most part. But like, how do you when you go into like building a rankings for Devy, right? Because I know it looks like to me you put in a freaking shitload of work to build that list. Where do you start? Is it like a blank slate, blank canvas, and you kind of have your list of guys and you watch film and you rank them and then you go to the numbers, or how do you go about building that list for your rankings for Devy?
Yeah, I think it's sort of gosh, man, it's sort of a composite of a lot of things, right? Like I truly enjoy college football. I enjoy watching the game. I enjoy watching teams and players that people don't really like. Like I just like the game of football. I truly am passionate about it. So I watch a ton of football and I'm on this quest, man. I don't know if you've seen me tweet it out, but football ain't complicated. Like it's just not, man. It's to me regardless if it's film, if it's analytics, it's not rocket science, right? And people like you, I hear this all the time, Mike, but you don't have to be some film grinder. Like you don't have to grind film to watch Nick Chubb run the ball to say he's fucking good, like he's a
Yeah.
good running back, right? Like you can turn on the tape and watch any Alabama game and see Devonte Smith or Jamar Chase or these players play and say this dude is good. He's playing in the best conference. He's at a Power Five school. He's good. Now, yeah, there might be some little nuances that you don't pay attention to or you're not thinking about, whatever, right? But conversely, on the opposite end of the spectrum, when two players look really good on film, right? When Rondell Moore and Jalen Waddle both look good on film to me, and they're both dynamic, they're both explosive. What separates them? That's when I lean on the numbers, right? Like I want to look at who broke out earlier. I want to know who was able to produce at an earlier age. I want to know which player was able to command the majority of the receptions and receiving yards on their team. I want to know, which guys on the field on third downs and how they do in these situations. Like, and I know that is not a skill set of mine. I don't have the time to do that. Dude, I can barely set up a damn Google sheet to do a rookie draft that just says 101. Like when it gets to like the 110 and the zero goes away, like I'm struggling to find how to put a fucking zero in the thing. I just put an O and capitalize it. So that's not my strong suit, but I use a little bit of everything, man. I use and to a certain degree, and this is the maybe a lot of people don't know this, but I do look at what people are saying about draft capital because it does matter, right? So I can love this player all I want, but if everybody's saying this dude is going to be an undrafted free agent or he's going to be a fifth round pick, I'm not going to rank him above a player that's going to get the draft cap. That's just silly, man. I'll tell you, this is going to be a draft they value. Go get him later. But I think I take a little bit of everything into consideration. So I honestly don't consider myself a film guy. I consider myself a football dude. And if you're a football guy, then I want to paint the most complete picture possible, and that is part film. And there's a difference between watching film and watching the game. Two totally separate things. Watching the game is one thing. Watching film is completely different. You don't watch film for enjoyment. I'm watching film to look at certain things. When I broke down Jamar Chase the other night, I wanted to see how he did off of the line of scrimmage. When he was facing press coverage, I wanted to see how he was able to win. What areas of the field what is he a little deficient in? Like it's not to watch him and watch how good he is. I don't give a shit about the touchdown plays. I want to see how he does on the intermediate routes, on the plays where he's not getting targeted. Like I want to see those things. So I take as much stuff into consideration as possible, man.
Yeah, and just I mean on that point, like people don't know this, but like watching YouTube highlights is not watching film. So like when you go to YouTube and type in Jamar Chase highlights, that's not going to tell you anything, right? What you need to do and what Ray does and what a lot of well-respected film writers do is they get the all 22 film. And a lot of it, like wide receivers aren't getting targeted that often. Like it may look like it, but like a lot of times you're watching him just like swing arms and like beat the guy off press, the route that he takes, how open he is. And like you can't get that off YouTube highlights, which is again another endorsement. Just go to Ray's channel, man. The freaking film breakdown this guy puts out and his team puts out. And shout out to Jordan as well. Love that dude. They put out great content. I mean, it's not just they break it down, they circle the place that you need to see, they point out the plays. Like I've myself, like I'm not a film grinder, but I try to be. I want to watch these things. I want to learn because I like football, like you, Ray. I don't consider myself an analytics guy either. I just that's just what I'm comfortable with, right? I'm a nerd. I work in spreadsheets all day. I have on my entire life. I was an investment banker back in the day, and now I'm just working in finance still. So that's where I'm comfortable. So similar to how you kind of like look at film, and that's where you're comfortable as a college player. I look at spreadsheets and I say, hey, these are the list of players I want to look at. Then what I do is I go to Ray's channel, right? I go to guys like Jay Moyer's channel. I go to the FF astronauts and I see what are they seeing from the film perspective that I don't understand, and do those things line up? And in my experience, when film and analytics line up, that is a smash play. That is how you get the Jonathan Taylors. That is how you get the DeAndre Swifts. That is how you get the studs, the AJ Browns of the world, when both line up. And that's why I respect film grinding a ton. That's why I try and incorporate that in my process. I don't know if you know this, Ray, but NFL.com, I did like a little study on them this last year. They were superior to PFF in every single way in terms of their grades. And shout out to the guy that puts that together. I know it's a ton of work. And I think what it is they do a great job of predicting draft capital, right? And like to your point, we don't have the inside knowledge. Like I don't have the inside track of where players are going to go. I know Ray definitely has some inside track. He's homies with Jalen Rager. He's got some football players out there. But, for those of you that don't know it, NFL.com, NFL grades is a really, really good indicator of draft capital. So from a numbers perspective, that's what I'm going to be incorporating a bit into my analysis going forward. But yeah, man, it's super interesting to hear. Like I'm always interested to learn from the film analytics perspective, from the film grinder perspective, because that's like not a world that I don't know, right? And you should always be trying to learn what you don't know, and that's how you get better in Dynasty. So, man, it's awesome to hear like how you kind of approach that game. Super interesting. I guess a follow up from your film grinding is what is your thoughts on route running? Because we on Twitter, when I first got started on Twitter, man, Jerry Jeudy, route god, the greatest wide receiver since Julio Jones. As I went on and learn more and follow guys like Ray and others, I think route running is pretty overrated. But Ray, I mean, you watched the all 22 film. What are you looking for in terms of routes? Because when a Jerry Jeudy goes up against Western Alabama and some defensive back from there who's probably going to not make it in the NFL, like what do you look for? How do you judge route running? How do you incorporate that into your analysis, if at all? What do you think about the community's obsessiveness with route running? Is it overrated? Is it underrated? I'm gonna flip it to you, man. Let me hear
Yeah, I don't give a shit.
it.
I mean, I don't. It's almost sort of like I'll say this: for the wide receiver position, there are multiple ways in which a wide receiver can separate. That's all I care about. Can you get away from the defensive back? Some wide receivers do it with pure speed, right? Some wide receivers are able to do it because they are technicians. Some are able to do it because they're bigger and stronger. Like Des Bryant ran no routes, but he was just bigger and stronger than everybody. I watch AJ Brown. He's just big and strong, man. He's not some route running savant out there looking like Jerry Jeudy can route run laps around AJ Brown. But at the end of the day, can you separate and can you win with your individualized skill set? And you can do that a ton of ways. Now, if you have that in your repertoire and can do other things, then that's good. Like, okay, good. You're a good route runner and you have good hands and you can create separation and you can get off of press coverage. But just it's like the crossover in basketball. It's fun to watch, right? When you see somebody get crossed over, but here's the thing with the crossover. You can cross over as many people as you want. If you can't knock down the shot after you cross them over, who cares? Like it was a highlight. Like you go do and one mixtapes if that's all you care about. Like you're moving around, but you're not going anywhere. You're not doing anything. So I think that's why a lot of people fell into the DK Metcalf trap. He can only run a couple of routes. I don't care. If all he runs 3 routes, a go route, a smoke screen, and a slant, he does it better than 98% of the people in the NFL, and he's going to win that way. Like, I don't care about that. I can tell you there's a player, his name is Andrew Hawkins. He played for the Cincinnati Bengals, one of the best route runners that there is. Go look up his fantasy points per game and see what that got him. Like, it's one of those things. I think it's fun to watch. It's cool to see it happen, but there's no correlation in all the years that I've been doing this. I've yet to find correlation between a crisp route runner and fantasy points per game. Again, if you can do that amongst other things, then cool, that's a good package. But just to have people posting videos of a singular route that somebody ran really well, I just think it's one of the most it's nonsensical type stuff, and I just I don't really factor it in, man. If they can separate and catch the damn ball, and yards after the catch is way more predictive for me. How far they're running their routes, like yards per route. Like I look at other things, not just their route running ability and how crisp it looks. I don't care about that, man.
Yeah, you heard it here first, man. Jerry Judy and one wide receiver from Ray GQ himself. Uh, yeah, you're totally right. I mean, even in the NFL, people love to quote like the yards of separation. That stat is meaningless. I mean, it has zero correlation to fantasy success. The DK Metcalf lesson was one that I learned. I mean, I was a total rook coming in. I fell for the 3-cone trap. I fell for the he can only run a go route. I didn't analyze film at all. He was hurt all college, and I fell for that narrative, right? And that was a great lesson that I learned. Is like, look, maybe he can only do that one thing well, but if he does it better than 99% of everyone else, and he's paired with Russell Wilson, and they're willing to use him that way, that's all you should care about, because that translates to fantasy success. And we've seen DK Metcalf blow up. Luckily, I'm a quick pivoter, so I have a lot of DK Metcalf, and I corrected that mistake. I maybe paid a little bit more than I had to, but I'm totally fine with it. So, like you said, man, there's more than one way to win in the NFL, and the way, just don't pigeonhole yourself into like a certain way of thinking, into a certain way of winning, and because that's how you fall out and miss on all these like really, really good players, right? Because you're only looking at what they can do. I mean, Bill Belichick does it better than anyone. Don't ask what they can't do. Ask what they can do and how you can use them to do it, right? And that's what we look for in fantasy. So great point there by Ray. So, I mean, we talked a little bit about the process. I'm sure the viewers are starving. They want to know about the ranks. Let's talk about some players, man. And I've been looking at your Devy ranks, and I'll let you go take it over here. But, at quarterback position, I don't think there's too much of a discussion here. You got Trevor Lawrence, you got Justin Fields. Not much of a debate there. I guess what I'm interested in to hear from you is how far do you think is T-Law and Fields, one, from apart from each other, and two, apart from the rest of the field?
Yeah, they're the clear top two guys. I see a lot of people trying to push another signal caller above Justin Fields. It's, gosh, just ridiculous. Every year there's got to be some narrative that people push. So here's one that this particular player out of Brigham Young University is a better quarterback prospect than Justin Fields. Stop. Those two guys are clearly the top two guys in the tier in Devy in college. I think both of those guys right now, without being drafted, without taking a snap, I'm going to be conservative here, Mike. They're top 12 dynasty quarterbacks right now, and that's being conservative. Like if we were doing a dynasty startup right now, and I had the choice between Jared Goff or Baker Mayfield or Danny Pesos that we joked about earlier, or Justin Fields, it's a lock. Justin Fields. I think they're that good of quarterback prospects. And I have, and this is not hyperbole. I'm not just saying this. Trevor Lawrence is the best quarterback prospect since Peyton Manning. He's a better prospect than Andrew Luck. I know a lot of people want to say the best since Luck. Trevor Lawrence is a better quarterback prospect than Andrew Luck, and that's not diminishing Luck. Luck is here's my thing, Mike, and this is something I've started using a lot. Andrew Luck, Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, these quarterbacks, those kind of quarterbacks are what I call floor raising quarterbacks. Okay. They are able to, whatever situation they're in, they are going to make whatever team they're on better instantly. Like, I truly believe, and I've said this on at least 10 different shows now. You take Trevor Lawrence right now and drop him on the New York Jets right now, Adam Gase, the weapons, all of that. I'm not saying they're a 10-win team. I'm not saying they're a 5-win team. They're a better football team than what they are right now with Sam Darnold. Like, he makes some of those guys better. He makes Jamison Crowder better. He makes Brashard Perryman better. He might revive the life and the dead corpse of Christopher Herndon. Like, those are floor-raising quarterbacks. If people go back and look at Andrew Luck, what he walked into with the Colts, it was a dumpster fire, man. Like, he was running around to save his life, and he made that team better. So when I'm looking at those two guys, they're not far from each other. I know some people who say for fantasy, they prefer Justin Fields to Trevor Lawrence because of we're projecting the situation, right? Justin Fields goes to the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence goes to the Jets. Jaguars, you know the weapons. One of your guys, one of the guys that you talk about all the time is running the ball with the Jaguars. They've got an improved offensive line. So I do think an argument can be made, and I believe we'll see in rookie drafts, people take Justin Fields ahead of Trevor Lawrence. For me, I don't even have him in my ranks as number 2. It says 1 and 1 for Fields and Lawrence. they're both outstanding players, and I cannot wait to see them play in the NFL.
Yeah, it's a great class. I mean, I don't know if you watched the Elite 11, but that's like a show that I watched for some of these high school prospects. And Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence were in the same class with each other. And Justin Fields actually won the MVP of that Elite 11. That's how I knew about them. And then that's why I was so pissed when I had to watch Justin Fields sit behind freaking Jake Fromm at Georgia for a year. But he finally got on leash. He is a great prospect. He is not just a runner, right? He is a great passer. He can throw dimes. He can throw it on a rope. But Trevor Lawrence, again, I want to go back to this. What do you think makes him a better prospect than Andrew Luck? That's before my time. So I want to learn from your point of view. What is it that Trevor Lawrence does better than Andrew Luck did as prospects?
I mean, from the time that he took over at Clemson as a true freshman, right? If you go back to that season, Kelly Bryant was the starter, and Kelly Bryant wasn't bad, and it was a really tough decision for Dabo Sweeney. But immediately, you just see that offense open up with the player like Lawrence, right? The arm strength is there, the accuracy, the playmaking ability, and then you look at him, and a lot of people see this tall white quarterback, and they think that he's this statue, he's immobile. I called him Trevor Vick, and you and I have had the argument on Twitter back and forth where I've said, look at the numbers. I think he's a better running quarterback than Justin Fields. Not that you want him doing design runs and RPOs and read options, but I think he's a player who's going to go to the combine, and I wouldn't be shocked if he drops a 4 or 5 in the 40-yard dash. Like, he can move. He's athletic. He's not going to run 4.7. At worst, it's going to be a 4.6 something, which is still rolling for a quarterback. His decision making, the leadership, just how he carried that team to a national title as a true freshman, right? And granted, Clemson had a bunch of players around him. That team wouldn't have won a title with Kelly Bryant at quarterback. They won the
Mm-hmm.
title because of Trevor Lawrence, and you just see it week in and week out. And I think we call it kind of, we had Christian McCaffrey fatigue to a certain degree last year. When you've got these players that are just so dominant and so good, you last year we just expected, you put Christian McCaffrey in your lineup. If he scored 24 points, you were pissed. Like, that was a down
Yeah.
week, right? Like, he's a top 12 running back, a top 5 running back, but because he didn't give you 38, you thought it was a down week. And I think Trevor Lawrence, every time he goes out there, he can throw 5 touchdowns, like, without question. And he doesn't lock in on a guy. He distributes the ball. And a lot of people say, oh, well, he's got better weapons. Go back and look at some of the players that Andrew Luck was throwing to. Stanford had players as well
Mm-hmm.
on that offensive side of the ball. So I just think he's the most complete quarterback that we've seen since Peyton Manning.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting. I mean, I'm with you. I think Trevor Lawrence might be like a top six quarterback out of the gate. I'm like someone that kind of leans youth for quarterbacks because honestly, outside of like Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, like Lamar Jackson, and now like Justin Herbert, like and Josh Allen, like a lot of the guys don't have as much security as you think they do. So like you might as well take a shot on the young guy. And people are scared of the Jets. Personally, I think, like you said, if it's a floor raiser, they're going to go into a shitty situation no matter what. Look at Joe Burrow. Look at what this Bengals team is without Joe Burrow and what they were with them. And like Trevor Lawrence is a better prospect than Joe Burrow. So just kind of project that. And I don't think Adam Gase will be there very long. And even if he is, this is the type of player that you need to transcend that type of shitty coaching, shitty team. And honestly, I think the Jets have a couple good pieces, man. They got a couple good O-line pieces here. They got Denzel Mims, who's looking
So
pretty
do
good
I.
out there. So don't be afraid of the situation, man. Draft for talent in Dynasty because situations change and guys like Gase are going to be 1 foot out the door. But enough about the gods, T-Law and Fields. Let's talk about that next group. You mentioned one of them, Zach Wilson, who's having like a Joe Burrow type ascension almost this year, right? And then you got the Trey Lance from last year. You have your guy, Mac Jones, who's been balling out, putting on a show. And then you got Kyle Trask, who I think other people put in this tier. I have him a little bit behind. I'm curious to say, like, I know you like Mac Jones, but how do you think about that next group of quarterbacks?
I think it's great. I think they're all. I think we've got, like we said, two gods, right? Two locked and loaded. Fields and Lawrence are going to start from day one. If I looked at the next tier of quarterbacks, I really only see one starter, one potential starter out of the gates, and it's Mac Jones. I think he's a starting NFL quarterback right now. With that being said, of the of that tier, because I do have a little bit of a tier gap. I like Kyle Trask a lot. I've talked about Kyle Trask a lot. I think he's a player that if a team gets him in the second round, or if they're going to take him early second, we might see a team trade up at the back end of the first to go ahead and get that fifth year option on him, and he's a first round pick. But of that tier three, Lance, Wilson, Jones, I think Jones is the most pro ready right now. He reminds me of sort of like an improved version of a Kirk Cousins,
Love that.
of a Jimmy Garoppolo type player, right? He's a starting quarterback. You need those in Superflex. He does not have the ceiling of Trey Lance or of Zach Wilson. He doesn't have that ceiling, right? He's of the three, he's the least athletic. Trey Lance has a cannon of an arm. Zach Wilson doesn't have a cannon, but he's got arm strength, and Mac Jones has arm strength as well. But he's accurate. And Mac Jones is the type of player who's going to come in, run the offense efficiently, take care of the ball, and he's not a game manager that doesn't want to push the ball downfield. He's one of the nation's leader in deep ball passes, deep ball passing yards, deep ball percentage. He wants to go deep. He's a safe quarterback who's going to provide stability in super flex. The upside of Trey Lance and what he can become, I mean, he's could become a top five quarterback in the NFL, right? With his ability to run the ball and throw the ball, little more developmental. I know he had an outstanding redshirt freshman season. It was at NDSU. I don't really care about his one game season. That I can go into all the reasons why that was never going to work. And as a former defensive player, if I knew that a team only had one game and they picked me, and I know that game was for him to go off against me, I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that doesn't happen. So I don't even care about that game. But he's a project, man. He played one season at FCS school. Okay.
Yep.
Zach Wilson is really the wild card. And this is why I have him ranked right behind Mac Jones in my ranking. I've got Jones overall, Devy 13, Mac Jones 14. He probably has the highest upside, and he's probably going to be the player that's drafted before Mac Jones and Trey Lance. If I had to bet the mortgage right now, I think he's the third quarterback off of the board. So therefore, with that draft capital, potentially landing in a better spot. I'm seeing a lot of stuff about him in Carolina, right? If he's
Ooh.
around Christian McCaffrey and around DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel and those weapons, you can't fade a player like that, right? But I do hope that Lance and Zach Wilson, they sit a year. I really hope they land. And Carolina could be a perfect spot for him to sit behind Teddy Two Gloves for a season, learn the game. Teddy Bridgewater's a professional quarterback, and then maybe by the start of the 2022 NFL season or late 2021, he takes over as the starter. But I really like that tier, man. And a lot of people were talking that shit about there's not going to be five quarterbacks drafted in round one. I saw a mock draft the other day with seven in the first round. Seven.
Who was the
Like
seventh?
seventh, Kellen Mond out of Texas A&M.
What?
And dude, let me tell you something, man. There are more and more people that I keep hearing his name popping up, and it blows my mind. I want no part of it. But Kellen Mond was the last quarterback taken, and he went to like the New Orleans Saints in this mock draft that I saw by
Of
CBS.
course, he went to the
So
New Orleans Saints.
yeah, it went to the Saints, right? So I think we're locked in for five quarterbacks. Kyle Trask can make it interesting. And I don't think we'll get seven, but the quarterback play right now in the NFL is atrocious. So it wouldn't shock me if we get six.
Who do you think is more of a project, Jalen Hurts or Trey Lance?
Trey Lance.
Trey
Trey
Lance
Lance.
more of a project than
Tr- tr-
like a weaker passer. You mean?
so we're recording this on Sunday. As I'm watching, man, Mike, I'm not trying to be prisoner of the moment. I'm legitimately wondering, is he a better passer right now than Lamar Jackson? I'm not saying a better quarterback. I'm just saying, is he a better thrower of the football than Lamar Jackson right now? And the fact that I'm having to think about that shows me, listen, Jalen Hurts, he was good in college, man. And when you see what I really like to see for college quarterbacks is completion percentage, right? And I take some things into consideration when I look at the system they played for, the conference. But when you look at his completion percentage from his freshman, sophomore season to what he did at Oklahoma, like that doesn't just happen by accident. Like he got better. He stuck through some things, the mental fortitude. Alabama wouldn't have made it to a second national championship
Mm-hmm.
had it not been for Jalen Hurts coming in off the bench versus Georgia and
Yep.
winning that SEC title game. I like everything about the kid. So I think Trey Lance, and he did it in the SEC, man. He did it against the most elite defensive competition in the developmental league, which is the NCAA, that a player can do. Trey Lance did it against William and Mary and Bemidji State University. Like the bigger project is Trey Lance, 100%. Lance may have a higher ceiling, but I also think he's one of those players that may just never fire. He could have the lowest floor out of all of these quarterbacks, right?
Yeah, I mean, those of you playing Devy leagues, man, I bet you can do a deal where you can get Jalen Hurts for Trey Lance, especially if you're in a Devy league where people are hungry for Devies. I mean,
Probably.
yeah, I think you can get that deal done. And I too love Jalen Hurts. I mean, one thing that I love to see from college quarterbacks is winners, man. And that's why I'll never understand why Chicago passed on a Deshaun Watson. I can understand why you passed on Patrick Mahomes. I cannot understand why you would pass on Deshaun Watson. These guys are proven winners at highest levels of play. And that is the only insight we have into mental fortitude because you cannot interview these players. You do not know. So, guys who can win in college and do it at a consistently high level, and guys like Jalen Hurts who overcome situations, overcame getting benched, still was a team player, went to Oklahoma, put up a Heisman-like season, right? Like these are traits that you can't really attach a number to, but I value strongly because, like you said, and many people say, man, the game is mental. You know, all these guys are elite athletes, man. All of them got great arms, they got great legs, they got great talent, but it's the ones that overcome mentally that can really deliver. And man, I love that about Jalen Hurts. I'm so happy to see him play. And it's a fair question that you asked, man. Is he a better passer than Lamar Jackson? I guess we'll see. Getting him to develop over the next half year or so. We'll see where he lands up with Lamar Jackson. We'll see how he adjusts once NFL defenses adjust to him next year, hopefully, when he has a starting job. But yeah, definitely an interesting one to see. And, a good trade advice for you guys out there. Try and explore getting a trade for Jalen Hurts using one of these hot stud young Devy prospects.
Mike, let me ask you real quick. I mean, right now, at this very moment, I mean, what is he right now? At least a first round pick. If you're trying to trade for him, if you have Jalen Hurts, would you accept a 2021 second for him right
Oh,
now?
hell no. I wasn't accepting a 2021 second even before he went
Yeah.
one.
So at minimum, and you're looking at where the first round pick is. Like you're trying to gauge who you're going to get. I mean, uh, that's where we're at with him, man. I mean, he's
Yeah.
at minimum going to cost you a first round pick.
Yeah, I mean, maybe 2 seconds, but like probably a first. So that's kind
Yep.
of where I'm at. You got to hold on because like he's one of those guys where it's like high risk. The floor is the basement. We know that. The floor is he just gets benched and goes back to the thing. But if he works out, I mean, we know what the ceiling is, right? Like we're not gonna say he's Lamar Jackson, but you're looking at that type of trajectory. So yeah, I love Jalen Hurts. Big happy for him. Next up, spicy, man. I went over to your ranks. I saw this. We're gonna talk wide receivers, my favorite position group to analyze because there's a lot of numbers that go with them. And then obviously there's a lot of film analysis that goes with them as well. But I saw this. I couldn't believe it. Devonta Smith. Is he the Devy wide receiver one, the 2021 wide receiver one? What do you say, Ray?
Yeah. Yeah, he is. Yes,
And
he is.
I,
Yes, he
so
is.
you moved him ahead of Rondell Moore, moved him
I
ahead of
did.
Jamar Chase.
I
Is
did.
it this season that did it for you, or like what went into that thought process for you? What do you say to all the people that say he's only 175? What do you say to all the people that say he didn't break out as a true freshman? What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, man. I mean, and those are some fair counterpoints to him. And no, it's not just this season. If you go Ray GQ, check the receipts. I've been all over Devonta Smith for a while. As the talking heads talked about the big three at Alabama, they always left Devonta Smith out. And I go back to when they won their national title in 2017,
Mm-hmm.
it was to Devonta Smith. He iced the game winner. Every time we saw Tua needing a big play on third down, it was to number six every single time, man. And then last season, on a team that had two first round picks, the number one wide receiver drafted, he led that team in receiving yards, was second in receptions, was an absolute stud, over 1,200 receiving yards that season. And this year, okay, he comes back for a senior season. I know a lot of people, if you're really good, you don't come back for a senior year. He probably was going to be at best a late first, early second round pick in 2020, right? He was going after Rager. He was going to go after Jefferson. Hell, he may not even have been that. He may have been selected after T. Higgins and Michael Pittman. Coming back this season with a new quarterback, with a depleted wide receiver room, it was him and Jalen Waddle. This was going to be the season. Let's see what you can do, Devonta Smith, as the guy. And what hasn't he done? He is on pace to break the Jamar Chase's SEC receiving record. He's already, I believe, eclipsed his receptions total from last year, and he's going to had it not been from this past weekend, he was on a trajectory to go for over 2,000 receiving yards in the SEC in a shortened season. That's how dominant he was. So while he did not break out early, while he came back for his senior season, it's not like he's a player that just came out of nowhere. He produced as a sophomore, he produced massively as a junior, and we're seeing him dominate as the focal point. And now he's added punt return versatility to his game. He's already does the little things that I like. If you go back to and watch any of Najee Harris's long runs, you go back a couple of years, he's aggressive in the blocking game. It's the little things that he does combined with there's nothing and I looked at this. There's nothing that Jamar Chase is a fantastic wide receiver prospect. But I also posed the question. Last year, we talked about how good he was. And because he was so good, he allowed Justin Jefferson to go the hell off last season. But we see Justin Jefferson dominating the NFL right now.
Mhm.
And I just posed the question, why wasn't it Justin Jefferson was so damn good he unlocked Jamar Chase? Like maybe Justin Jefferson was really the best wide receiver on that team last year. And I know Chase went off, but Jefferson had 1,540 receiving yards in his own right and two fewer touchdowns. So when I'm looking at what Devonta Smith does well, he's going to get the draft capital. He's going to test very, very well, and he's got the production behind his name. Although he's 175 pounds, he's never missed a game that he started. Never been in. He's probably been injured, but he hasn't missed a game. I've seen him get hit and get right back up. He's very explosive. He's fast. He's got sure hands. What's not to like about him? If 175 is your only gripe, then I think you just need to reevaluate stuff. And I get historically the only these many. I don't give a shit about any of that. I mean, this is a and here's my thing. And Mike, maybe you can help me with this. So when we're looking at BMI, body mass index, and we only focus on these skill position players, but the entire NFL has changed. Linebackers aren't 260 pounds like they were 10 years ago. We've got defensive tackles, Aaron Donald, barely 300 pounds, wrecking offensive linemen. It's like everybody is kind of smaller and faster, not just the receivers, but we got linebackers playing at 220 pounds, 218-pound linebackers. So the entire game is different. So if we're going to do that for a skill position, do it for all of them. Like, let me see historically how big are linebackers compared to what they were in the past. How big are the safeties now compared to they're taking defensive former cornerbacks and moving them to safety. And in this NFL, you can't even hit. Like, you can't even hit. You can't headhunt. You can't hit high. Like,
Yeah.
it's made for these type of players. Now let me just say this. Ultimately, in my rankings, 1, 2, 3, 4, it doesn't matter. I've got 4 tier 1 wide receivers: Moore, Waddle, Smith, and Jamar Chase. I will let draft capital and to a certain degree landing spot, a smaller degree, but I'm going to let draft capital play itself out. And Rondell Moore is still my favorite player in this draft class. I think he can be a dominant fantasy scorer out of the slot. He's going to play a slot. He's going to be a slot receiver, but I think he's a player that can come in from day one and command 8, 9 targets a game and absolutely wreck opposing defenses. But I am a little bit at this point unsure of the draft capital he's going to get because of questions around injury, which are overblown, and his size. But I think he's going to silence a ton of critics at the combine. Still, my favorite player in the draft is Rondell Moore.
Yeah, I love Rondell Moore too, and that draft capital point. I started seeing some tweets from like Lance over at NFL.com saying he might not get the draft capital. So the concerns are definitely shared there. But just an exciting player, true freshman breakout. I mean, I freaking love Rondell Moore. It's him and Jamar Chase at the top for me with Bateman. But Devonta Smith is creeping up there. It's hard to deny. It's like you said, man. Sometimes football is simple. It's easy. You just watch the game and you see a good player. I know Nick actually really loves Devonta Smith as well. People forget this, but Devonta Smith was hella productive last year. I mean, we all fell in love with the Henry Ruggs and the Jerry Judys, but Devonta Smith was the one out there producing week in and week out, the guy that Tua was trusting. So Devonta Smith, man, stonks up through the roof, man. Speaking of stonks up, I'm going to take a quick break to talk about something. I know y'all love BDGE, the brand we're building. I'm sure the followers of Destination Devy love the brand that Ray is building because you see that we're passionate about what we do, right? We are in essence a small business. We are living the American dream, trying to build a brand, trying to build a business, and we're growing. You've seen Ray's growth. He's growing freaking to the moon, man. And BGE, we're trying to also grow really quick in our end. But the thing is, once you start growing, man, there's a lot of bullshit that you got to deal with, man. Not football, not film grinding, not numbers grinding. I'm talking like numbers, keeping the books, paying the bills, website hosting fees, all this shit that Ray puts in behind the scenes work to get you the product. That all we do to put up behind the scenes to get you the product. You don't see it, but it's annoying, man. It detracts from our passion, and our passion is to get you content about fantasy football. In particular with Nick, you guys don't see this. I work with Nick behind the scenes, but you might not know this. He's not a numbers guy. Ray said himself, he's not a numbers guy. These guys are not living in spreadsheets. They are living and breathing the game. And that's why we partnered up with North One Banking. They are making banking simple for small businesses, to basically take away all that bullshit so we can focus on what we want to do. And what we want to do is talk football and create content for you guys. And what they're doing over there is super cool, man. I've been scoping out the product. We'll never push some shit on you that we don't believe ourselves. It's just super easy banking. You can separate your bank account into like different stuff for invoicing, savings, for investments later on down the road, just stuff that really lines you up. And it's cheap and it's easy. That's the thing, man. None of these like hidden fees that are sneaking in there that you didn't read the fine print. And next thing you know, you're getting hit with like a few $100 bill. None of that. $10 a month. No hidden fees, withdraw, deposit, ATMs everywhere. You can do it on the go, do it from your phone. And again, man, it's made simple so that we can focus on what we love to do. You can send checks digitally, so no more paper. The only paper you're gonna be worried about is the paper you're making from doing the business, man. Just gotta do the business. So make sure you get up there, man. If you are a small business owner, this is a great product for you. You can sign up, make an account in under 3 minutes. And man, it's business made simple for Americans. So no better thing that I can say than that. If you're into it, make sure you check it out. Great company, great product, North One Banking. Back to the matter at hand. We talked a little bit about the other wide receivers, the tier ones that you have. But what about the tier two? I'm a big fan of Seth Williams. I think Bo Nix stinks, so people don't know about him as much. But I'm a big fan of Seth Williams. Jalen Waddle, as you mentioned, is another great guy out there. But what about guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown? What about guys like Dyami Brown? How do you think about that next tier, which people will probably be looking at in that, early second to mid-second range of Superflex drafts? How do you think about attacking that part of the draft?
Dude, this 2021 class of receivers is it's loaded, man. There's just so many good wide receivers in that second tier. You talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I have him as my number 5 wide receiver in the class at the top of tier 2, followed by Rashad Bateman. Dyami Brown is somebody I've been pumping up for over a year now. Just his ability to track the deep ball, his big playability, I think it's going to translate very well at the NFL level. LSU's got another dude, Terrace Marshall. He hit some of those analytical thresholds with early breakout age. The fact that he was the third or fourth option on that LSU team last year and still had 10 touchdowns, over 600 receiving yards in that offense, and this COVID shortened season, he was absolutely dominant with a bad LSU team. You've got a player like that, Tylan Wallace. It's crazy if you look at Tylan Wallace's stats this season. They're almost identical. Games played, receptions are both 53. The yards are right there. Like almost identical to what he did last season. And I think he's another one of those players that will be drafted on day 2 and end up making a roster, starting wide receiver somewhere for an NFL team as a legitimate number 2. And the list goes on. Elijah Moore out of Ole Miss. What we thought we were going to get from. If you look at Elijah Moore's numbers, I don't care about any deep dive in the analytics, and you just look at his receptions and his yards. If this were somebody who played for LSU or Alabama, they'd be in Heisman contention. We'd be losing our minds at the production that a player like Elijah Moore is putting up. Seth Williams, Tutu Atwell. I mean, it's Kadarius Toney, one of my guys that I've been talking about a lot from the University of Florida. There are so many good receiving options outside of the big name guys that we all know about. And in this pass happy NFL, there's plenty of footballs to go around. So unlike the 2022 class, get as many seconds and thirds as possible. I know that's starting to become kind of cliche, but when you're sitting in the third round and Elijah Moore staring at you, when you're sitting in the third round and he wouldn't fall to the third in my league, but Dyami Brown is sitting there for you in the third round. You're going to be a very, very happy camper. They're going to be. The key is not hitting on Devonta Smith and Jamar Chase. The key to building a true dynasty is when you're in the third round, when you're in the fourth round, it's finding these gems that do meet some of those analytical thresholds, that do pass the eye test when you're talking about film. It's finding the Kadarius Tonys, that's finding the Elijah Moores and drafting those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I love Dyami Brown. I mean, I'm a huge fan of him, but like you said, it's really about finding some of those gems in the late second round pick and in the early third round picks. You're gonna get legitimate talents that get drafted in round two of the NFL that are gonna be there, and that's the beauty of this class, right? You know, we talk about the quarterbacks. We already named like 6 or 7 that be first round picks, so all of them are gonna go within the top 2 rounds in your super flex rookie drafts, right? And then you got the running backs and now the wide receivers. So it's a really, really deep class. I've been stashing a lot of second round picks. I've been stashing a lot of first round picks. You know, I love first round picks. Early on in the season, people were panicking about COVID and how you should panic about, you know, are we worried about first round rookie picks? Are they not going to get enough time to like develop? Like, what do you say to that? What do you say to that? Those folks who are scared of betting on this class?
I've already talked about them. I called their ass out on Twitter, man. Those are the people right there who put their money in a savings account and wanted to earn. Like those are the same people who do shit like that, man. Like I don't get it. Like what was why? Because they're gonna forget how to play football if they opt out. Because Jamar Chase, he forgot how to run around. He forgot how to catch the ball. He forgot how to break tackle. Like it was just the stupidest. I'm sorry. I just thought those people were silly as hell, giving out horrible fantasy advice, and that's why you listeners don't. Twitter, let me just say that Twitter's like the worst place for all kinds of advice, fantasy advice, financial advice, relationship advice. Follow people who know what they're talking about, and rock with those people. Rock with Big Dogs Gotta Eat. Rock with BDGE. Rock with Destination Devy. There are some other talented people out there. I'm not going to name everybody because I don't want to leave people out. But follow people who know what the hell they're talking about. And everybody who told you to fade 2021, they're the same damn people trying to buy those draft picks now at an increased cost. But it's a deep class. And let me just say this. I think even deeper this year, Mike. I think it goes way beyond mid second. I think we're talking late third, early fourth, because we've got positional players in this draft that we didn't have last year. We didn't have 5 to 6 to 7 quarterbacks. We had no tight ends that we were taking in tight end premium leagues. So while we don't have as many running backs in this class, I think the depth of the tight end position, if 5 quarterbacks go round one in the NFL draft in super flex leagues, 5 are probably going to go in the first round. Like
Mhm.
that's already almost 50% of your first round is already allocated to quarterbacks, right? And then you'll have another guy who's panicked that will reach on a Kellen Mond or will reach in the first on a Kyle Trask. So, and we'll get to this position. There will be there will be multiple tight ends selected in the first round. Like if I had to just guess between quarterbacks and tight ends, you've got 8 players that are probably going to go in the first round of your traditional startup drafts. That's just going to push all those other positional players down the board. This is going to be a fun draft to participate in. I think we're going to see more variance across rookie drafts this year than we did last year.
Yeah, I mean, you brought it up, but might as well jump there right now with tight ends. I mean, Kyle Pitts, it feels like every weekend that Kyle Pitts plays, you go on Twitter, and that's probably 99% of the content. 90% of it is driven by Ray. I learned about Kyle Pitts through Ray. He's been on him for years now. So that's the first receipt that I remember. You know, Kyle Pitts is obviously a stud, right? Personally, I don't invest high draft capital in tight ends, even in rookie drafts, even in tight end premium, just because you have to wait so long. I did it on TJ Hawkinson, and look, I'm glad I did it because he panned out, but it cost me 2 years of production, 2 years of trading and stuff that I could do. What is your take on tight end premium? What is the earliest that you would be willing to take someone like Kyle Pitts? Like, how do you treat rookie tight ends?
Okay. So I truly don't believe there's a bigger Kyle Pitts fan than me. I really don't. I've been talking about him for years. I probably won't have him on any of my rosters. There's probably a good chance that I don't end up with him. Now, let me just say this. All tight end premium leagues are not created equal. If we're talking 2 points per reception, 2 points per reception, that kind of changes the game for me. And depending on where I'm drafting, I'm still not taking him. I'm seeing people talking about top 3. Like it won't be OGQ. I won't be doing that. And I also know that there outside of Kyle Pitts, there are like 4 or 5 other legitimate tight ends in this class that I'll take in the third round and be just fine with. And I think a lot of those guys will end up starting. But he's a freak, man. He's a phenom. But I just I've said it. I think he's a top 5 dynasty tight end right now. I just I'm not going to push the draft button early in what are our normal tight end premiums, 1.5 a
1.5.
reception.
Yeah.
And I think Scott Barrett did some analysis on that, where outside of like Kelsey and Kittle, even the 1.5 doesn't really move the needle unless you've got like the elite tight end who's receiving all the volume, right? It doesn't change stuff that much. So for me, I'm excited because I know he's going to go early in my drafts, and that's just going to push players down. Love them. The only place where I have these elite tight ends, it's crazy the different strategies and auctions compared to regular drafts. I've got quite a few of these tight ends in auction drafts because they just fall
Hmm.
and you can get them for a cheap cost. But using Devy actual draft slots, I probably won't have a lot of Kyle Pitts, even though I think he's a phenomenal player.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head. Like I wrote an article, maybe it was last year. I was just trying to study the differential based on ADP of like where tight ends go. And what I found is that people actually overvalue tight ends in that middle range and tight end premiums. They think like it raises the value of all the tight ends. But in reality, it's like you said, if you're not a target hog, if you're not a Kelsey Kittle and Darren Waller these days, the tight end premium actually does not benefit you from a scoring differential perspective. So you're basically paying a premium for perceived value, which, at the end of the day, you still got to score fantasy points. That's why I fade tight ends. I'm like you. Look, I love Kyle Pitts. He's a great prospect. I'm going to be rooting for him like hell, but I will probably not have any ownership in him. The only place I might have some in him is in non-tight end premium leagues. I find that people actually undervalue tight ends in those, undervalue young upside tight ends specifically, where you can get him with like a late first round pick and early second. I would be totally cool with hitting the hammer on that. But in tight end premiums, yeah, I'm totally on board with you. He's probably going to go like top 5.
Yep.
And there's no way in hell I'm taking him over running backs or
No,
stud quarterbacks.
no, no.
Yeah. So who are some of these other ones? I know you love Pat Fryermuth. You like to call him Baby
Yeah.
Gronk. So
Yep.
he's one up there, but maybe talk a little bit about him and some of the other guys that you think have a chance at being fantasy relevant coming into next season.
Yeah, I thought if there were going to be one tight end to push Pitts this season, it would have been Fryermuth, but Penn State was horrible. And then he got hurt and then said, the hell with this season. I mean, they were horrible. I lost some money early on the season betting on Penn State. Never again, James Franklin. But Pat Fryermuth is a dog. Like, he's a player, super athletic. Some people thought he was going to declare last year. Other people thought he was going to go play pro baseball. Like, he's that much of an athlete. He's huge at 6'5", like 260, but they move him all around the field, can play inline, can play out wide. Brevin Jordan out of Miami, another one of these move tight ends from my hometown of Las Vegas, is dope. But some players, some tight ends that people aren't talking enough about. Hunter Long out of Boston College, he's going to be a starting tight end in the NFL. Hunter Long is legit. Kenny Uboa out of Ole Miss is legit. Charlie Kohler out of Iowa State is legit. Like, these are players who are going to be starting tight ends, probably not year one, but down the line. And I will happily take Hunter Long in the 4th round if I can get Hunter Long in the back of the 3rd. You know what I mean? Like, this class is legit at the tight end position, and I haven't even brought up players like Nick Muse out of South Carolina, Jake Ferguson out of Wisconsin. Like, there are some good. This tight end class is legit. There will be a lot of tight ends drafted. It's a good year for tight ends. It's going to be nice.
It's gonna be nice, man. Unlike last season, it was literally truly one of the worst stone worst tight end classes of all time. I mean, I don't remember a one like that, but it was brutal. But enough about tight ends, man. Let's talk about the most exciting position. As much as zero RB truthers don't want you to believe it, you need goddamn running backs to win in fantasy football. That's just a matter of fact, not opinion. And this class has got a couple exciting guys. Top of the list for me, and I know for you, Ray, is Najee Harris. But a lot of people love Travis Etienne, and he is explosive. He's an exciting player. How do you think about those two prospects? Do you think they are as close as people say, or do you think there's a bit of a gap between the two?
No, I think there's a tier gap. I think there's a tier gap. I think it's Najee Harris. I think Najee is the best running back in this class. I'm not going to use the cliche that it's not close because I think the other running backs are talented, man. But when you're talking about a TDT, I call them three down threats, TDTs. Najee Harris at 6'2", 230 should not be able to move the way that he does. He shouldn't. He's a combination of Steven Jackson, Matt Forte. Like he's just patient. He's powerful. He's explosive. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. And I know it seems crazy, but the fact that he can score at the goal line, that's important, right? Like we've seen players get these goal line carries and can't punch it in. He has a nose for the end zone. When you're inside the three, give it to Najee and he's going to pound it in, right? We saw that with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. 5 goal line carries like week one and couldn't get it in. Like I like the fact that he knows how to get the ball in the end zone, but he's just a complete running back. He does every single thing be above average, like legit. I believe there are a lot of running backs in the NFL right now that I would not take over Najee Harris. I believe in the talent. I see it. I've seen it the past couple of seasons, and even when he was sharing a backfield with Josh Jacobs and Damian Harris, when he got in and got opportunity, he was productive. I know a lot of people are talking about this age thing, right? He's going to be a grandpa walking across. I don't give a shit about any of that. He'll be 23 as a rookie. He's going to be a second round pick. He's on a 4-year deal. At the end of his 4-year deal, he'll be 27 years old. Anything I get after that is gravy. If he's productive at 28, 29, 30 years old, that's gravy. And the fact that he was not utilized a lot early in his career, this is his second season and he's not even being fed. I'm really happy with the way Nick Saban is using him. They're not running him into the ground. They're putting in Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson had 3 touchdowns this past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
He's not even on Najee Harris's playing field. Najee's the clear-cut running back one. The reason why Travis Etienne is dope. And what I've been most impressed about is the fact that coming into last season, he out of his mouth said he was afraid to catch the ball. I looked today, he's got 41 receptions on the season. I was like, wow. And granted, they're not like he's split out running choice routes out of the backfield. He's not Christian McCaffrey, but I don't care how you catch it. Like they're just throwing him little pop passes and he's doing damage in the receiving game. He's not as talented of a rusher. He's more explosive, right? And I mean it sincerely. I haven't seen a player go from 0 to 60 like him since like Chris Johnson as a running back, right? His just ability from 0 to 60 is outstanding. It's like Tyreek Hill-esque. As soon as he gets the ball, he's gone. His footwork, his vision, if the hole ain't open, Etienne is going to slam into the back of his offensive lineman, okay? Now, he does have outstanding contact balance. Like you see him absorb these hits and be able to contort his body and get the ball downfield. But he's not they got him listed at 200, 205. He ain't 205. He's not. He's probably 200, maybe a little bit less than that. Najee just profiles as the more complete running back at the NFL level. Travis Etienne's got some competition at RB2. I've said it before. I believe that Javonte Williams out of UNC, this was before this weekend's blow-up game, profiles as a more complete running back than Travis Etienne.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up his name, Javonte Williams, big riser, definitely put on my radar by, following guys like you and others in Devy community. And, he put on a show this past weekend. Like you said, he's a much bigger back. He's got the size, he's got the 3-down skill set. So, ranking him above a Travis Etienne, assuming they get similar draft capital, I could totally see that playing out. How do you think about like landing spots? Like I know you've mentioned Najee Harris in Pittsburgh. That'd be a great landing spot. Personally, I think an Etienne would fit really well with the 49ers under a Kyle Shanahan schemed offense. If let's say Najee goes to Pittsburgh, right? Etienne goes to 49ers. What do you think is like a good spot that would kind of suit that skill set for Javonte Williams to put him in that vault him into that same tier of guys?
Yeah, so your boy, your partner on Bunkbed Breakdowns made a fantastic comp. And I think it was just the best comp. And I'm not a big comps guy, but when I saw this in his snarky ass way, I was like, this is fantastic. And he said Javonte Williams is Chris Carson with draft capital. And I was like, that's it. Like he's Chris Carson with draft capital. Chris Carson has not received the contract extension. I don't know what they're going to do. But if he lands in Seattle, if he lands in Pittsburgh, if he lands with Tua in Miami in the second round,
Yeah.
like that will vault him. And for me, Mike, Najee is landing spot independent. I don't care where he lands. Like I don't care. He's going to be good in any offense, right? ETN is heavily draft capital, he's going to get that. Landing spot dependent for me. I don't think you can just drop him into any offense and say, go get it. I think he's going to have to be with a creative offensive coordinator, which you would like to think all these guys are, but that utilizes his skill set in space. I know, right? Like, we look, it's funny. People on Twitter always are, well, you're not in the league. You're not the head coach. Like, we want to think that these are the best and brightest minds in the world at football. Like, and I'm not trying to be cocky, but I don't think some of them are. Like, I don't. Like, I don't believe some of them are the best and brightest minds in the world. We sit back and we wonder why the hell is Jonathan Taylor not carrying the ball? How is Miles Sanders end up with 8 carries? Like how smart are you? Why is Carson Wentz top 5 in dropbacks in the NFL when you know there's no offensive line play? Some of these guys aren't the best and brightest minds in the world. I'm sorry. So I do believe that Travis Etienne is heavily landing spot dependent. And if he lands with the San Francisco, that would be awesome. If he lands in Seattle, I don't know how awesome that is going to be. If he lands in a team that's like, this is how we run, we're going to slam them up the middle every time. I'm not sure how that's going to play out for him.
I totally agree with you. I mean, Najee, the way he moves, the way he catches the ball, the way he runs, and he's catching the ball downfield, not just on dump offs, which is truly impressive. He is definitely the more independent guy. And Etienne, like I said, like you said, he's definitely going to be dependent on where he goes. So it's going to be interesting to see where those guys go. If you guys do drafts before the NFL draft, like me, and you're a degenerate and you're like Ray, then I definitely go with Najee because he's definitely the safer pick no matter what. But if you want to take a risk it for the biscuit, wait for the NFL draft to see where some of these guys land to make that bet. But it's an interesting class, but it is not a deep class, right? Aside from these three guys, you are not too comfortable with anyone. I mean, there is like the Kenny Gainwells out of Memphis, who's exciting, but he does not profile as a 3-down back at all. And then you got the most overhyped Christian McCaffrey comp of all time. I don't get it. He's out there as well. So yeah, I mean, the reason why we love, and I know Ray does too, love attacking running backs in the earlier on in the draft because you can get guys like Dyami Brown later on. You can get guys like Seth Williams later on, Amon-Ra St. Brown's. You can afford to pass on a Jamar Chase to take a shot on some of those wide receivers, but you cannot afford to take a pass on Najee Harris and some of these top running backs. Because if you miss on them, it's really slim pickings down the line. So that's what we got for running backs. That kind of covers the Devy.
And Mike, real quick though, I want to give you and your guy a shout out though. James Robinson. I know that's your boy, right? I know that's your boy.
That's
The
boy.
James Robinson of this 2021 class, mark my words, he'll get drafted, but it's going to be on day 3. Elijah Mitchell from Louisiana. He is this year's version of James Robinson. Just write that name down. Elijah Mitchell, this year's version of James Robinson.
I'm writing that shit down in
There
my
we go.
notebook right
There
now.
we
We're
go.
gonna look into him. Viewers, make sure you look into him. This is why you follow Ray, man. He knows these names that I don't even know, but I'm gonna look into him and dig into it and research it for you guys for these upcoming episodes. But James Robinson, man, anytime you speak James Robinson name, you got my attention because this guy is gone out, and I love talking about him. But people say I talk about him too much, so I won't cover him anymore. But make sure you write down that name, Elijah Mitchell. I got it in my head. Make sure you get it in yours. Next thing I want to cover is cornerstone rankings. For those of you that don't know what that is, I find these to be really cool. Ray has them over on the All Gas channel on his Patreon. If you're a subscriber, you can get access to it. But it's like combining the incoming class with the existing rookies. And it's interesting because those are the top assets you want, right? These are the value risers. These are the value protected guys, the 21-year-old rookies, the young producing wide receivers with the incoming high producing rookie class. That's how you kind of want to look at it. And the reason why it's interesting is because you can kind of it gives you a sense for how to do trades between Devy and NFL draft picks, right? How do you approach cornerstone rankings? Like, how do you approach ranking Devy players versus NFL players?
So I'm not big on numbers, right? But I have these numbers kind of with my cornerstones. So the largest portion of like how I rank and value these guys are current production, right? So you're going to see a lot of guys that are producing right now in the NFL ranked higher than some of the 2021 guys, right? So um AJ Brown is significantly higher than Jamar Chase and Rondell Moore. But it's just an interesting way. So I look at current rookies, the upcoming class, and then the prior class. So I look at in my cornerstone rankings right now, it's 2019, 2020 and 2021 players. And it's a super format, super flex format, how I rank them. And I just go 1 through 100. I just do the top 100 guys. I'm not, the Devys are like almost 300 deep. I'm not going that deep on Cornerstone. Go somewhere else for your fucking dynasty rankings. Production, man. I want the players who are scoring. Like I wouldn't recommend going out and drafting Rondell Moore ahead of AJ Brown or DK Metcalf. That would be silly. As much as I like Rondell Moore, that'd be a foolish move to make. But it's trying to project the future. It's trying to think about what I would actually do when I'm on the clock. And I've got some tweaks that I'm going to make to next year's how I want to rank them a little bit differently. But it's really probably the hardest ranking set that I do. And I talked about this on a show the other day. I only update those twice a month. I think a lot of times people are reactionary. And I've always said if people are updating their rankings multiple times a week, I think they're bad rankings. Like if you're going through and doing that shit all week, like multiple times a week, now you're just reacting off of what you just saw and not really. I want to take in a couple of weeks worth of data before I start shifting people around. And it's also important that when you're doing these cornerstone rankings like this, if I move Amon-Ra St. Brown ahead of Rashad Bateman in the cornerstone, well, then when you go to the Devy rankings, you shouldn't see Rashad Bateman ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's got to correlate and be consistent across the board. So it's really a time consuming task, but I try to factor in how they're producing now, what I project them to do in the future. That's why DK Metcalf is so high, and
Mhm.
Trevor Lawrence is as high as he is because I do believe I was conservative with you. I think he's a top 6 quarterback in Dynasty. And in a Dynasty startup that I just participated in, he went 102 right after Patrick Mahomes. So it's kind of, yeah, I know. It's right now, biggest Dynasty buy at quarterback is Lamar Jackson, in my opinion. I think so many people are overreacting to
Yep.
this season, but neither here nor there. That's how I kind of do the cornerstone rankings. I'm looking at production, and then I'm looking at what these 2020 guys could be, and I've got some adjustments I need to make there. And then I need to look at what the 2021 class could be. So current production 50%, 2020 production like 25%, and then future production like 25%. But I want producers, man. I want producers.
Yeah, I mean, like when you're looking at like a DK Metcalf and AJ Brown, like sure they're maybe a couple years older, but in the grand scheme of a wide receiver lifetime, like that is not that significant, and they've already proven it on the field. So I'm with you. Like I have a very hard time ranking any rookie wide receiver over some of these like proven early producers in year 1 and year 2. Like none of these rookie wide receivers will be going above Justin Jefferson for me. None of these rookie wide receivers will be going above like a CD Lamb for me, even maybe even like a T Higgins, who I'm a big fan of. So
Yeah.
early production at wide receiver position in the NFL is extremely, extremely important. I find that people often underreact to them. People are unwilling to move rookies up because there's only been a year. Ray said, don't overreact, but it's not overreacting once you've taken in a good, solid chunk of games. He's saying don't flip back and forth
Right.
for running
Right.
backs like week to week, right? And that's not what we want to do.
Right.
Like you saw that with Jonathan Taylor. People like dumped him on. I've had Jonathan Taylor as my RB1 for the entire time, and thankfully it's kind of paying off. But you gotta see some data, right? You gotta see a good data set to have a trend, not just like one or two random data points.
Right, right, right. Because if we did that, if people did that, then Taylor would have went from number one to number 60 to number 30 to number 70 to number one. Like it just, I just don't, I don't care for that. And I'm just gonna say this, and BDG doesn't have this problem. Destination Debbie doesn't have that problem. I cannot stress the importance to your listeners, Mike, to follow and rock with people who put in the work and the time. I know what goes on the back end of some of these ranking sets that you guys pay for. It's a lot of just moving shit around just to do it. No kind of thought into it. And I'm not going to name any websites. I'm not going to name any of that. But those things matter, man. Like people are coming to you for advice. And what I say about rankings, they're not, don't take mine as Bible. Like just use them as a tool. Like, okay, raise high on this guy. What am I missing? Why am I not seeing that? Or compare them to yours. Don't just go verbatim off of what I say, but know that people like Mike, what BDGE is doing, what I'm doing, like we put care into this, right? Like we really are trying to think and make sure that like I put my money where my mouth is. I went out and acquired a ton of Rondell Moore. I have Rashad Bateman on my rosters. I have Jamar Chase. I've invested in Mac Jones. Like it's not me just saying this. Like I'm putting my money where my mouth is. So make sure y'all rock with people who are putting in the work because a lot of people are just shuffling people around week by week without any kind of care or thought, man. And that's a disservice to the consumer.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely don't want to go for clickbait, and there's a lot of clickbait. It's clickbait season. I have a dedicated Twitter account to expose clickbait season. But like Ray said, man, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And trust me, go to patreon.com/allgas and become a member, because I'm telling you, these rankings are slick. They're not your typical like spreadsheet shit with like ugly ass colors everywhere. Like they got like player pictures, they got college teams, they got 24/7 rankings. Like it's not just a ranking list, it is a database, and I go to it and I reference it. And Ray's putting out videos and cut-ups that attach these players. Like, trust me when I say this, man, it is a truly a great product, and the cornerstone ranking is super slick and it's super dope. Probably one of my favorite parts of that entire thing. If you guys got some money to spare, trust me, check it out. It should be going for more than it is, but you can get it for a really, really good price. And it's one of the best values in Dynasty. And Ray's not paying me to say this, man. Trust me. Like, I
No,
don't pay for any products. The only products I pay for is Destination Devy, because I think it's worth it. And I think you guys should make sure you get on that shit too. So just get those rankings up. Who are you putting your stamp on right now before the Twitter echo chamber takes effect? I know you're like, a lot of people like to pull up receipts, and it's because they fire out like 20 receipts at a time and they pull out like 1 out of 10. I know you
right.
don't do that. And the times you fired up receipts, they've been slam dunks. Like Henry Ruggs, wide receiver, went off the board. I heard that one first. Rondale Moore, way early on when he's a true freshman, before anyone even talked about him. That's how I learned about him. A lot of these great calls that you had is really interesting. So I want to know right now, who's like one running back and one wide receiver that you're putting the stamp on, that's getting the Ray GQ seal of approval.
Yeah, the Ray G seal of approval. I've got to go chalk here with the running back because a lot of negativity about his age. Najee is going to be a slam dunk pick. I'm telling you, I don't see outside of injury. Injury is the only that's the X factor that none of us can control, right? Najee Harris, sooner rather than later, is going to be a top 10, and I'm even thinking top 8 dynasty running back. Like, he's that talented, he's that good, he's that productive, he has that skill set. This is before the landing spot, this is before the draft capital. Najee is a slam dunk pick at running back. I'll say this, Mike. I don't think he has the pure talent, and he's not going to test like a Jonathan Taylor, right? He doesn't have just JT is just a pure dude, man. He's such a good running back, right? For some of his maybe shortcomings and some of the things that he's not so great at, like he's proven he can catch the ball, but he's not a great receiver. I don't think anybody would say JT's a great receiver. Not like he's not that, but he's just such a complete package at the running back position, right? He's one of those players that we're just going to throw in there and you're not going to be able to get him. He's going to be one of those unacquirable guys because he's going to be so dominant early on in his NFL career. But I have to say this, although he's fallen down my ranking a little bit, he's fallen down my wide receiver rankings. I cannot envision a world. I guess I can, but Rondell Moore is going to be that dude. I think he's going to be one of the biggest draft values, especially if he gets this horrible draft capital of the second round. Just oh, could you imagine a wide receiver ever being productive that was a second round pick? That just it's impossible, Mike. It's not possible. He's going to be a player who's probably going to be, if I had to bet right now, he'll be picked after in your regular dynasty leagues, not with degenerates. He'll be picked after Jamar Chase, after Devonta Smith, and there's a potential if Jalen Waddle gets the draft capital, the Alabama bias jumps into play, maybe after a Jalen Waddle. You're probably looking at the fourth or fifth receiver off of the NFL draft board. But when I tell you, I have not seen a more dominant wide receiver at what he does well, which is get the ball in space, create after the catch, a yak monster. And yak, I love yak. If you could do stuff after the catch, that's important to me. That's one of those non-meaningless stats. Like, I need to see you do something after the catch. Rondell Moore is going to be a star at the next level, and he's going to do it from the slot and really go ahead and change the stigma around slot wide receivers. Like, we should already be there. We've seen Wes Welker have like over 1,500 freaking receiving yards from the slot. Now, granted, that team was amazing, but we've seen him be productive from the slot. We see what Tyler Boyd does from the slot. We've seen what Juju, Chris Godwin. Rondell Moore is going to give defensive coordinators headaches. And if you have him on your dynasty teams, you're going to be very, very happy early on in his NFL career.
Love those. Love Rondell. Love Najee. Don't be scared of the age. Don't be scared of the size. Sometimes, man, it's like Ray says, football is not that complicated. Just get good players, man. Just get good players, and those two guys are going to be studs. I'm definitely going to be trying to get a lot of them with the rookie picks that I've had stocked up. So, they got the Ray GQ stamp approval. That's good enough for me, man. You got my approval on them as well. So get out there, get excited. And I know some people are in playoffs. If you're out of playoffs, you have this to look forward to, man. This is why Devy's awesome. This is why Dynasty is awesome. There truly is no off season, and I honestly like this part of the season more because this is where I really get to do the
Yes.
research, dig into everything, have some takes before the Twitter echo chamber takes effect. And it's part of the game and it's part of the fun. And sometimes, you know what? I'll get burned. I'll be wrong. Ray will be wrong too. But you know what, man? I'm not gonna go back and delete my tweets. You can find it.
Nope.
I'll be wrong. I will be wrong often, but we will be right more than we are wrong. And in the long run, that's what counts to help you. Before we head out here, Ray, I want to hear your advice for those people out there. What if someone is still hesitant about Devy? Maybe they're like, there's too much college games. I don't want to watch college. What is your advice to them? Why they should get into Devy going forward? And then also, what is your advice for like aspiring content creators? I know you built your stuff from the ground up. So want to get your take and a little bit of advice for the viewers out there that are looking to do the same.
Yeah, if you're still a little hesitant about Devy, I'll just say this: that one of the best parts about playing dynasty fantasy football is trading. It's
Mm-hmm.
trading. And when you participate in Devy leagues, it gives you another layer of trade asset. You have your NFL players, it gives you really two more. You've got your NFL players, you have your NFL rookie picks, you have your Devy players, and then you have your Devy draft picks. So it just allows more creativity on how you acquire and move on from assets. I can say, Mike, I'll trade you Justin Fields and a Devy first for Deshaun Watson or whatever the case may be. Like, it gives you another layer outside of just like, he would never even consider a deal if I was like, I'll give you Kirk Cousins in a first for Deshaun Watson. He'd be like, get the hell out of here. Like, no. But if I'm offering him a young stud quarterback who's going to get the draft capital, whom he likes and who he believes in, it may make it more enticing. And the cool thing about Devy is, for most people that participate in Devy, they have a favorite college team. And there's
Mm-hmm.
something about getting that guy from players like Zamir White. Like, you find a Georgia fan, they want Zamir White. You find a Texas fan, they want Sam Ellinger. Ew. They want Bijan Robinson, right? So it's another layer of fun. Like, don't be intimidated by it. Football ain't hard. Follow the people who pay attention to the college game, and then utilize those rankings and data sets for advice as a tool. So don't be scared about it. And again, the more you know about the upcoming classes, the better you can position your team for short and long term success. So while everybody is trying to acquire, like right now in trade negotiations, you should be trading for 2023 picks. Like, I know that's way out there, but trust me when I tell you, the class is loaded. And when that time comes, you're going to be sitting on 5 or 6 first round picks, and you'll be looking like, damn, this is a good class. I'm glad I just asked for that as a throw in. So it just gives you something to think about. And my advice for those trying to get into this space, man, is just the biggest piece of advice that I can give. I can tell you to work hard, to create good. Well, you need to create good content first and foremost. Okay. If you don't create good content, I don't care how hard you work. Nobody's going to listen to you. No one's going to read your stuff. But be unapologetically you. You've got to be you. You can't be Ray. You can't be Mike. You can't be Nick. You can't be the FF ballers. You could try to imitate all of that shit, but ultimately, if you're not authentic and you're not you, you're gonna fail. You're not even gonna get to the point where you can talk about monetization, where you can talk about sponsorships and making any kind of side income. If you're a faker, man, you gotta be you. And I was a faker when I first started. Like, I tried to be somebody else. I was trying to sound like other people. And when I said the hell with it, I'm finna be me, talk like how I want to talk, say what I want to say, do what I want to do, run the show how I want to run it. That's when things started to unlock for me. So my big thing is create good content first and foremost, and be you, man, because I know there are some people who just rock with me because it's me, right? They just like to engage with me, and I appreciate them and I appreciate that support. But if I didn't have a good product, Mike told me flat out, and nothing that he said was some BS. When Mike signed up, Mike said, I don't do this. Like, this is not what I do. Like, I don't, like, I love you, Ray, but I'm supporting you because I believe in what you're doing. I appreciate the content and the work. Like, that's real talk. This dude told me I don't do this, but I'm rocking with you and I like what you're putting out. That's love. So you got to be you, and you got to produce good content. There's a lot of other tips and strategies that I can give, but we ain't got all that. We ain't got time for that. Go listen to Nick's shit that he does over the summer, the business of fantasy football. There's a lot of good gems over there that he produces, man.
Couldn't agree more, man. You got to be yourself. It's tiring to record. So if you're trying to pretend to be someone else when you're on screen, you're gonna burn out. I promise you that. Like what you see here with me, what you see with Ray is exactly how we are in real life. Maybe I'm an asshole sometimes, but I don't want to pretend to be nice if I'm not. So that's how it is. Great advice from Ray. And last, before we head out, Ray, where can our people find you?
Dude, on Twitter at RayGQ, YouTube Destination Devy, patreon.com/all gas. That's where I'm at, man. I do some work with Roto Underworld and the Podfather Matt Kelly. Do some video stuff with FTN. But if you want me, my content, it's on Patreon, man. Come holler at me. And let me just do this. I don't ever do this, but I rock with Mike. I believe in what he's doing. So if any of you listening to this, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, screenshot you listening to it, screenshot you watching this video to my DMs, and I will give you access. You go sign up to be a member of the squad. Cheapest tier, $3. You don't get access to the database unless you hit the all conference tier, which is $7 a month. $3 through the month of December. I'll give you full access to the database, full access to the entire Discord channel. And if you like it after the month of December is up, got to upgrade. But for the rest of the month, if you rock with Mike, then you send a screenshot that you're watching the show, you're listening to it, and I'll hook you up. You sign up for the $3 tier, I'll give you full access to the database, full access to the Discord through the rest of the month.
Woo! Love that shit. It is good, man. I'm telling you, $3, dude. I'm paying the call conference here because I think it's worth it. And I promise you guys, if you sign up for that $3, you will want to stay. That is a guarantee. You can book that today. You can write in your notebook, save it on your calendar, do whatever the hell you want. But make sure you sign up. Head on over there, sign up, take a screenshot, whatever. Ray is hooking you up, and I promise you won't regret it. It's just fantastic, fantastic content. Ray, man, as always, I appreciate you. I respect the hell out of you. I love the work you're doing. I'm always gonna be following along and supporting because honestly, man, just one of the best dudes out there, but best content in the Devy game, bar none. End of story. Period. My stamp approval. I thank you for taking the time to shoot the shit with me on here. It was a great one, man. This is probably the greatest episode, most fun I've ever had, and a learning episode for me. Just listen to Ray talk about some of these Devies. I hope you guys learn as well. If make sure you follow him, head on to down below there. Follow him on Twitter. Head on to the Patreon All Gas and sign up. And I hope you guys enjoyed, man. Subscribe, smash that like, follow me on Twitter, engage with both of us. I know Ray's responsive as well. We love shooting the shit and engaging with fans. That's why we're here. That's why we're independents. And appreciate all you guys for tuning in, man. See you guys next week on another College Game.